The person I'm about to introduce, I'm currently on the board of directors of the Maui Native Chamber, Hawaiian Chamber of Commerce, and it has been my honor in that capacity to listen and learn from our next speaker. The word for wisdom in Hawaiian is na'au, and it literally means daylight mind. I say with conviction that when Ramsay Taum speaks, his words come from a mind that has plumbed the depths of Hawaiian values and culture, bringing its riches into the daylight. Ramsay is recognized locally, nationally, and internationally for transformational leadership in sustainability and integrating cultural and place-based values into contemporary business models. Further information on Ramsay's formidable achievements can be found in your program, especially his own Life Enhancement Institute. Ramsay today will speak to the Way of Aloha, the key effective service in business. Aloha is a word rich in meaning and cultural significance, and Ramsay will unpack for us the authentic importance of aloha in our contemporary business scene. And what a better way to close the conference. Let us welcome to the stage Ramsay Taum.
Mahalo. Thanks, Frank. I really appreciate that. I'm not sure I recognize the person you just introduced, but thank you so much. First of all, aloha, everyone. How are you? How was the day so far? Well, I want to thank you for inviting me to be, sometimes I like to say, the okole of the list. And I just came from Honolulu, where I had another presentation. It was a statewide conference or workshop on forgiveness. Forgiveness as a new way of being. So continuing with that spirit, please forgive me if I don't catch all of the things that were spoken about today, or if I repeat some of the things that were spoken about today. One of the benefits of speaking at the end when you are present all day is that you get to honor the speakers before you, and you also get to tie things together. So based on our conversation, I hope I can do some of that, perhaps introduce some new things. And if you see some things that have been said before, let's consider it a reinforcement. So we'll go from there. The Way of Aloha, the key to effective service in business. This last panel really kind of helped to tee this up, because without even going into the presentation, what I'd like to suggest is that before the internet, before all this other stuff, community was social media. You kind of commented on that earlier. It was, how's it, bro? How are you? How's your father? Who's your mother? What school you in? Right? I mean, those are 4 fundamental questions that we engage in anytime you meet someone in Hawaii for the first time. Who's your father? What school you in? Who you? Right? These are questions that haven't changed. In fact, I think the currency, well, the cryptocurrencies or whatever else, the currency was aloha. Right? We may use other things to demonstrate it, but ultimately the currency was aloha. And to a certain degree, we've kind of come full circle. Technology has actually helped to edify some of these things, because the internet, to a certain degree, really is about who and when. The delta is time. And how many of the who's can you get in touch with? But fundamentally, the what is the same. It's whatever we're trying to sell, or why you want to do it. Where are you going to do it? Now, well, that may be changing because it's from your house or from someplace else in the world. But fundamentally, it's maybe the same. It's how quickly can we get to them. So what else about the internet? What about this aloha? Well, I learned many years ago that you can't get on the internet without aloha. Have you heard that? That one of the first languages that were used to even connect the internet is called aloha. So you may use a login name, you do whatever you want, but you're using aloha. So aloha, interesting enough, is the way of business at that level. There's something else. We talk about knowledge, wisdom, all this opportunity. I also like to call that enlightenment. So I asked myself the question, when did we first become enlightened? Do you guys remember that? What's the old story about enlightenment? Where did that come from? I think her name was Eve, right? Eve brought us an apple. But first came Eve, then came Steve. He brought us an apple too. And in between all that enlightenment, we're really pretty much the same people, just doing it faster and from different places, because fundamentally, I think much of us spend time on the internet doing what our ancestors did, hunting and gathering. Right? You click, you hunt, you gather. You click, you hunt, you gather. We just shifted our hunting gathering skills from the aina, the land, the ocean, into the looking glass. And so if that's the case, how do we continue living this thing we call aloha, that currency, although it's taking on different forms and shapes? So today's conversation is kind of like that. It's kind of looking at that. So the service notion, I like to focus on it. It's a big language. I know some of you spoke about it earlier. But I'm going to focus on two areas of the service concept, which is mana. We're talking about money, but mana. Mana and aloha. Why? Because they tend to be less mechanical. Most times when we get into conversations today, because I work with a lot of clients, the training and the emphasis is on the mechanics, the techniques, the technical stuff, the mechanical stuff. And yet, it's the ethos, it's the spirit, it's all this other stuff that drives and how we use those mechanics. So, in this case, service of mana and aloha behind that. So let's look at it from this standpoint. Mana. Have you all heard about mana? Right? The concept of mana. Everyone place your left hand out, please, and say ma. Ma. Ma is passive, internal, soft, the minus sign on the battery. Right? It's feminine. Not that it's bad or weak, but it just happens to be the minus sign of the battery. Put your right hand out and say na. That's masculine. That's cool. Kane, that stands up. That's active energy. That's a plus sign on the battery. So you have the minus and the plus. So everyone ma and na. Put them together, what do you get? Mana. This is the balancing act between the plus and the minus, the in and the out, the right and the left, the up and the down, the feminine and the masculine, the hard and the soft. It's all of this. It's about balance. It's not about one or the other. It's about how do we find balance. And ultimately, most of us who have successful businesses have to go back to the balance sheet on a regular basis to make sure that everything is in balance. And so fundamentally, it comes back to this. To make money, we also have to understand mana. How much energy do I have, and how much energy do I put into this, and how much is it in balance? How much am I reacting to something, or how much am I proacting and getting in front of it, as some of our panelists have already talked about? So it is about balance, and it's foundational and fundamental to the principles of business and Hawaiian concepts. Passive and active, ultimately finding balance between these two. This is the foundational piece of aloha. It's the spirit of mahalo. I would say mahalo. Mahalo. Yeah, see, there's a word in the middle, ha. Everyone knows ha? Haith, breath, right? It's not any kind of breath, it's life-giving breath. It's life-giving. It is a spiritual energy that says whatever comes out of your mouth is given life, good, bad, or indifferent. If you have a negative word, expression, it comes out of your mouth, you've just given it life. One of my kupuna, Auntie Pilahi, would say, the seeds of thought are watered by the emotions of heart. Be careful of what you think and feel, because your words and actions manifest. In the word mahalo, this is the spirit of gratitude, the mana of gratitude. I'd like to suggest that what we do as business people is, hopefully we're grateful, that we show gratitude to our clients, to our customers, to our places, our resources. This is foundational. If we're not appreciative, they'll find someone else to go there. Mahalo. So this is the spirit of gratitude. And I think it's a critical component of where we're going with business, is to honor our customer, honor our colleagues, honor that space. Mahalo. It also says that mahalo is more than just thank you. When someone gives you something and you receive it from them, you say mahalo. What you're saying is we're now connected. That's a commitment. We're committed to that connection, the alo. That last part of the word means to be connected and to be in the face of that person. So when we say mahalo, we're saying we are connected. And therefore there's a commitment. But if we can't say mahalo and we can't say we're committed, just say thank you. There's no commitment in thank you. Thanks, huh? Right on. But you say mahalo, brother, we connected. There's a commitment. The next concept is the spirit of aloha. Now, we use the term loosely a lot of the time as a hello, goodbye type of greeting. But there, as Frank said, there are many meanings behind aloha. But I'd like to say this is the spirit of reciprocity, sustainability, as someone said earlier, because it is about giving and receiving, and not just taking. The business that gives and receives is one that is closed circuit, if you would. It's the original blockchain. It doesn't get outside. You have to keep inside here. Once it gets out there and gets away, that's when the giving and taking happens. See, I work in Washington, D.C., and that's where I learned this concept of give and take. They said, you give, we keep taking. They said, yeah, over here, dog eat dog. I said, I never acquired a taste for dog. So I'll stick with the give and receive. Yeah. Aloha is about giving and receiving. This is the spirit of reciprocity. And interesting enough, if we don't apply it to our places as well as to one another and our businesses, at some point in time, that open chain begins to fall away. Isn't it strange that we would expect the aina, the land, to continue to feed us with good things when all we put into it is bad things? We put trash in the ground and expect plants to grow. How did that happen? How many of us plant papayas and expecting pineapples? There's a logic to all of this. Not just spiritual, but it's a logic. We understand it, that what we put in is what we're going to eat. No different than business, right? What we put in is what we're going to eat. So that's aloha. The next thing is ohana. Ever say ohana? See, that's a spirit of family. Ohana is a spirit of collaboration and community. And it means that we're working together to feed one another, because in the word ohana, there's this term hana. Hana means labor. Oha is the root, the next generation of the taro plant. That's the future. That's the millennials we're talking about. It's the next customer. So when you look at the word ohana, you're saying the foundation, o, of life, ha. The next generation, oha, is perpetuated with labor, which is ana, demonstrative of how to feed one another, ana. That is to demonstrate, to teach, and to show. For what? Na, the future. Ohana is about the future. It's not necessarily about the past. And so you have these three interesting values that are all founded in the spirit of ha, which is the thing that's common to us. And a lot of times we want to say, look for common ground. But reality, the commonness is the air. Have you ever heard the statement, let's clear the air between us? Yeah. Because a lot of us have ground, but we tend to draw lines in the ground. Your barriers, your office, your room, that, right? But when it comes down to air, we all share that. And so what this is saying is that we're connected as business people, satisfying and serving our communities through service of whatever, but it comes down to spirit. The spirit of our community, the spirit of my business, the spirit of my workers, the spirit of our leaders. Well, interesting enough, when you put all three of words together and you line them up, you can write this down, but this is what happens. It's called mahalo hana. You see it? All three words? Mahalo, aloha, ohana. Everyone say that, mahalo hana. See, what it says is I'm grateful for those that I work with and engage in as community. Because when we work in the spirit of reciprocity, we all eat. We all survive. And interesting enough, when you look at the word mahalo hana, it starts with ma and it ends with na. It's all mana, right? So if you're kind of running out of money, check your mana account. The money account draining, check the mana account. Because guarantee, if your community does not feel the reciprocity, is not feeling the family, ole, no balance, right? That's when things go out of whack. So there is a balance between mana and money, not one or the other. This isn't about verses. This is about and. And what it actually speaks to is the difference in this concept, this notion of head and heart. Oftentimes these conversations really move a lot towards the head, but so much of what our customer is looking for is heart. What do they feel about this place? Yeah, they make good stuff, but I don't like going there. They don't treat me very well. See, that's not a thinking thing, that's a feeling thing. Have you been to a great place where the food is great, but you can't stand the service? Right? I've been to other places, the food is moderate, it's okay, it's nutritious, but I love the people. And anybody comes here and says, "Wow, you got to go to that place. Yeah, the food's okay, but hey, you got to go talk to Uncle. He's going to give you a good story." They remember you. They treat you well. Right? So that treatment is part of this concept. And so the challenge that we're having is that oftentimes we approach this strictly from a thinking standpoint. It's a cogitated process that tends to disconnect head from heart. In fact, we're seeing this tension right now occurring on the mountain, this mountain and the one on the Big Island. Now, without getting into the politics of it, look at the transaction. Basically, you have thinkers, brains, trying to tell hearts, feelers, to think. And feelers and hearts telling the brain to feel. You're asking two organs to do something they don't do. And then we wonder, they don't get it. See, what we need is a neck. Right? We need something to create a vertical conversation, because right now it's a horizontal one, and we're passing one another. And the same thing can happen in business. The fact of the matter is we can be telling everybody what's good about our product without knowing what they really want. We want them to feel us, and we're telling them how to think about us. Right, so the opportunity is, how do we get to the heart? But thinking about that. Ask yourself, how often have you had someone ask you, "What do you feel about this?" And our answer is, "Well, let me think about that." Have you ever heard that conversation? It's real interesting. What do you feel? "Oh, I haven't thought about that." Exactly. I didn't ask you to think. I asked you to feel. Right? Language gets in the way. I think I just responded to you, but no, you came from think, not from feel. And interesting enough, aloha and this other stuff has a lot to do with feel. It's getting in touch. So in other words, we don't think ourselves into new ways of behaving. Instead, I would suggest that we act ourselves into new ways of thinking. What I'm hoping we're hearing here today through all the things before me was that at some point in time, we have to take action. We have to act differently, not just think differently. Because I can think about it all day long, but until I put something into action, until I do something different, same results. And I think Einstein said that's insanity. Right? To think that we're going to get new results doing the old things, not going to work. So to this concept then is, how do we begin to act with aloha? Now, this concept of the way of aloha actually comes from this idea. How many of you have read the book of 5 Rings? You ever heard that? For those of you in business, I really highly recommend it. In fact, there's one written, the Book of 5 Rings for Business. Fundamentally, there's this guy, his name is Musashi. He's one of the greatest warriors in Japan. Everybody wanted to challenge him. He was the best at the game. Wherever he went, somebody tried to kill him with their knife, and he caught him up, and he went home. Did his poetry. Another day, another dead. Because in his way, in that book, he talks about the way of anything. And the way of the warrior, to Musashi, is death. Because if you're a warrior, you're going to kill somebody or you're going to die in the pursuit of your goals and objectives. But interesting enough, if you embrace the way of death, you live life more fully. Interesting. So he said, do you know your way? And in the same book, he says, the way of business is money. If you don't like money, don't get into business. The way of aloha is people. The way of aloha is engagement. The way of aloha is spirit. If you don't like people, you don't like engaging, don't do aloha. Right? And don't expect that the business of aloha or anything related to that will succeed either. So the way of aloha really begins to say, what is that? And I'd like to offer Auntie Pelahi Paki, who happened to be my olohe, my teacher, my mentor. She said it this way: aloha is a way of being. It's a way of behaving. It's not a slogan on a bus. It's not a slogan on a car. But it is a way of being. It comes down to behavior. Be aloha. Behavior, this term, action, conduct, performance. See, it's not about what we're thinking. It's really about behaving. We can think aloha. In fact, we tend to contrive aloha a lot. How many of you are in the visitor industry or have been in the visitor industry? some of these training modules. Have you heard the 5, 10, 15 rule? Have you seen that? 15 feet, you do what? You check them out, right? You're in the zone now. 10 feet, you start getting ready. Getting ready for the engagement. 5 feet, you engage. Oh, aloha. Nice to see you. Thanks for being here. 10 feet away, your smile goes away. 15 feet away, dumb tourist. You laugh, right? See, when in actuality, when we do that, we're actually creating a zone of aloha. These are the aloha behavior zones. Once I create a space that I can behave badly or poorly, guess what? We create these opportunities. If I can look the other way and you don't see me at 15 feet, I don't have to say aloha. Versus creating a space where the natural instincts of the person, the authenticity of that individual, of this place goes, hey, aloha, how's that, brother? Come inside. Hooey. We got to tone it down, tone it down. Right? Yeah, be aloha. But it's like, aloha, the big hug. Now you can't hug because of sexual harassment issues. Aloha, nice to see you. Hello, Mr. Taum, how are you? Brother, I know this guy all my life. He's at the front door. I walk up, he goes, hello, Mr. Taum. Mr. Taum, that's my father. Brother, how's it? Something got lost in that transaction. Because somewhere in the rules, the measurement changed. The metrics affected the practice. And so at some point in time, our behaviors get lost in the metrics. And as long as we measure the world and our behaviors by the current accounting metrics versus the accountability relationship metrics of the past, we're going to get more of the same. Look at this word aloha. It's two faces. It's one that says out and one says in. Aloha aku goes out, aloha mai comes in. Everyone say this, aloha aku. That's going that way. Aloha mai. That's coming this way. In the absence of one or the other, blockchain's closed. If it's just aloha out, guess what? It never comes back. And so in the old concept of aloha, the thing is face to face, nose to nose, heart to heart. This is when the full cup happens. This is when the two faces come together and you become whole. Aloha is about becoming whole. Aloha is about treating people whole. Not leaving them half, not leaving them wanting, but treating them whole. It's about wholeness. This is aloha. To be a full cup. To be in the face of the other person that says, your air is my air is your air. If I damage your air, I damage mine. Your best interest is my best interest. So when I say aloha to you, it's a commitment to you to make sure that I don't damage the air between us. Because in the process of doing that, I damage myself. Again, if you're going to say aloha, it's a commitment. If you can't say aloha, just say hi. How's it? How are you? How you been? Because there's no commitment in that. You can always walk away. But with aloha, brother, you stuck. When you say aloha, ooh, that guy means something. I'm going to listen to this guy because he just said something important to me. See, that's the value. That's the importance of where we're going in business, I think. And as time runs out, I'm going to use every other word, so I might get you there sooner. The way of aloha is really how we behave, how you behave, how we act. It is the art and the spirit of giving and receiving, which I've already said. But it says to give and not expect anything in return. But anytime you receive, you never forget to give back. Now imagine if all of our businesses and everyone behaved that way. Nobody would go hungry. Nobody would be without. Everyone would be left whole. It's a very different concept versus how much can I get from this guy with as little as possible, which is kind of the business mantra, right? The equation is put in less, take out more, which means if you take it to its full spectrum, that end to that end, it says do nothing, take everything. Is that right? If I follow the equation, do as little as possible to get as much as possible. That's called profit. If we take this to its full extension, I'm going to do as little as possible to get as much as possible. There's this paradox. It begins to bump into itself. And that's kind of what's happening to some of our communities as well as to some of our businesses. So before manifesting any idea, declare the creation of a context of aloha. That we are in the business to do these good things, and we're going to do it in a good way. Not only that, I'm going to do good, but I'm also going to be good. Just that sentiment alone, that sets the course. That sets your sails. Your canoe is going to sail on aloha the minute you set that sail. As Nainoa said, the sail plan is critical to getting there. If you don't have a sail plan, every island becomes a destination. And so at some point in time, the way of aloha has come down to these things. Before you can have aloha, you must do aloha. You must choose aloha. You must have power to choose. All of these things, as Auntie Pillai said, at some point in time, it comes down to us as individuals. And it's less about them as much as it is about us and how we treat them. Now, in the law of aloha, which is actually a law in the state of Hawaii, if you didn't know, it's HRS 5-75. Aloha speaks these things, but there's an acronym. Aloha, akahai, lokahi, oluolu, ha'aha'a, and ahonui. These are the characteristics, I should say, and the values. But keep in mind, values don't belong on a wall or they don't belong in a book. Values belong here where I can practice them and speak them. I've worked with human resource managers. So what are your values of the company? Oh, we got 7 of them. And they named 3 and they said the other 4 in the book. They don't even know them, and they expect the employees to live by those values, and they don't even know them. So what happens is we can espouse the values, but at some point in time it comes down to action. How do we begin to operationalize those values in commerce? Aloha in commerce is not really that difficult. We've had a hard time operationalize it when we think aloha is, hi, can I give you a lei? Let me hug you. If that's all it is, customer relations is just lost. Especially if it's giving leis. We now know that leis come from a plane from someplace else. Given to a stranger, by a stranger who didn't make the lei. How's that? Right? What was a very spiritual connection, this is my memorial to you. This connects us as family. Aloha. A strange lei is picked up by a strange person to give to a stranger who bought the lei for themselves. That's not aloha, right? That is a marketing plan and technique. So we got the money out of it, but somewhere we lost something, right? Where's the balance? So there is a tension between commerce and culture. The concept is one part of it is transactions, the other part is relationships. How do we go back to relationships as the route to the transaction? Dealing with people we enjoy dealing with. Dealing with people we want to be with. Dealing with people and communities that we're going to grow and help. I saw that earlier. You guys said you want growth. That's part of it. Here it is. The challenge is between belonging and belongings. A lot of the things we're doing today is really about what belongings can I have that gives me membership? How can I become part of your Rolodex? This is the difference between reference and reverence. So these concepts that we're talking about is the difference between things and people. Aloha is people. Whether it's the internet and it's an anonymous person, of course, the machine talks to us sometimes now, right? How do you know it's a person? If we treat every person like a thing, we'll get more of the same. The object is, how do we really begin to engage people? Customer engagement has become a huge thing. I've been dealing with a medical community where the doctor is having a hard time engaging the patient because they're in the keyboard like this because they have to put all the data in because the insurance company won't pay them unless they get it. It has nothing to do with care. It has to do with the business of health. The customer engagement. I heard them say it earlier. It's exactly where we're going. That's where we were, and we want to go back to it. And we're using these new tools. In other words, we have to create a place that is authentic and real, that where people can be creative, feel empowered and enabled, and that needs to be a place that is safe. I just heard it. It may not be safe on the internet, but we know that. So how do you protect yourself? How do we begin to create safety? And I say it's trust. You heard it earlier. You said it all. It's trust. How do you trust others? How do you trust the platform? How do you trust ourselves? And that comes down to this word. Everyone say, oia i'o. In Hawaiian, oia i'o is all these things. It's trust, truth, trustworthiness. And you said it earlier, sincerity. How sincere can you be? Oia i'o. The word oia i'o, back and forward, is a palindrome. It's truth going in, truth coming out. It's not truth one way. It's got to be truth all the time. This is the foundational stuff. So some of you know the guy Covey, right? He had this book called Speed of Trust. And the Speed of Trust and the Way of Aloha, interestingly enough, are very similar. Because in the middle of Aloha is an O. A-L-O-H-A. O instead of ohana is oia-i-o. If you don't have trust in your company, if it's not dead center in who you are, then I guarantee you people are going to have a difficult time trusting you. Oia-i-o. And so the trust account, the mana account, in the speed of trust is very different than the currency of aloha and the way of aloha account, right? And today I'm offering is that if you look at the paradigm that they set up, integrity below the surface and everything else, intent, capabilities, and results, I would suggest that every time we get together in these gatherings, we tend to look at that part. Today we're talking about this part. That's the part aloha. It's the character of who we are. That's different. There's a difference between being a character and having it. Okay? The character of aloha goes a long way. Fundamentally, character are the roots to everything else. I don't care how good your intent, capability, and results are, if at the end of the day, the underlying character is flawed, it's going to be seen through. Somebody's going to see through it. They'll feel it. They'll hear it. They'll sense it. The contrivance won't last the test of time, right? So I like to say from root to fruit. The root to the fruits we enjoy is really founded in the seeds we plant and how we feed ourselves and our families. It all starts in aloha, right? It's grounded in this concept and the capabilities that we have in the bottom part. Carrying capacity versus carrying capacity. We live in a time of sustainability where carrying capacity is the big thing. I would suggest that this is talking about carrying capacity. So let's close with this. Aloha is not always warm and fuzzy. In fact, in old Hawaii, bad behavior had consequences. If you didn't follow the rules, you got pounded on the head, fed to the sharks. See, we've lost touch of that. In other words, don't make mistake the kindness or patience. Aloha is weakness. Oftentimes we believe that's the case. What I want to leave you with today is that the character is represented on our behaviors. And at some point in time, this is a balance between head and heart. Aloha and mana is about how we get back to feeling, living, sharing, and being aloha. That's the next step. Okay? So with that in mind, mahalo hana. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.